That is total bullshit. That is buying into the right-wing media narrative. And I'm so sick of Democrats like you selling out and saying this.
It happened. It finally happened. Someone finally put Rahm Emanuel in his place, one of the smuggest pricks in all of politics. And I thought that it was going to happen a couple of weeks ago when Jon Stewart brought him on The Daily Show, but it wasn't as confrontational as I'd hoped. In fact, it wasn't confrontational at all. They were both pretty friendly and mostly talked about Donald Trump and joked about who was taller. And I've got to say, Jon Stewart kind of let me down here, especially because Rahm Emanuel talked about how Republicans win because Democrats keep disappointing people, but Jon didn't bring up his role in Democratic Party disappointment. As the White House chief of staff under Obama, he pushed Obama to water down the Affordable Care Act, even though it was already right-wing legislation to begin with, but he laughably thought that it was too comprehensive. And as the mayor of Chicago, he covered up the murder of Laquan McDonald, a 17-year-old black teen who was shot 16 times by police while he was walking away. So if you're trying to be honest and introspective about the Democratic Party and where they went wrong, you can't not talk about the role people like him play in the Democratic Party's decline. But that's where Jennifer Welch of the I've Had It podcast comes in, because she let him have it, and it was so great to watch. So he suggested that Democrats didn't talk enough about kitchen table issues in the last election, and said that the only room in the House they talk about was the bathroom, which implies that Democrats were the ones who were actually obsessed about issues related to sex and gender to the detriment of economic issues, and not Republicans, which is absurd, and she brings that up. Now, as mayor of Chicago, to his credit, he did pass laws barring discrimination against trans people in public bathrooms, but I feel like that's kind of the bare minimum, to the point where if you do something like that, that's just a basic expectation for any good leader. You shouldn't even get credit for something like that. It's like saying, hey, I'm not homophobic. Okay, do you want a medal for not being homophobic? Do you want me to pat you on the back? You're not a shitty person. Great, it's the bare fucking minimum. But to imply that that's all Democrats focus on, bathroom issues, is weird, considering how Kamala Harris barely mentioned social justice issues at all on the campaign trail. In fact, her campaign website didn't even mention trans people once, aside from the T in the LGBTQ acronym. Now, listen, I have my criticism of Democrats, and I certainly had my criticism of Kamala's campaign, but to suggest that Democrats, and the main issue here with them is that they're too woke or whatever, that plays right into the hands of right-wing propagandists who are trying to rebrand themselves as the party of the working class. And the Democrats are the ones who are out of touch because they're hyper-focused on social justice issues. And Jennifer explained all of this to him so well. So without further ado, here's Rahm Emanuel being ripped to shreds by Jennifer Welch.
We were really south on kitchen table issues. We weren't really good about the family room issues.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you 100
Okay, the only room we were doing really well was the bathroom. And that's the smallest room in the house.
That is such bullshit. That is total bullshit. That is buying into the right-wing media narrative. And I'm so sick of Democrats like you selling out and saying this. You know who talks about trans people more than anybody? MAGA. MAGA is the most genital obsessed political party I have ever seen. Kamala Harris talked about homeownership. She talked about kitchen table issues. Trump's over there droning on about Hannibal Lecter. Are you kidding me? This is where the Democrats lose, because we're playing the game with the rule book. They've ripped the rule book up and are cramming it down everybody's throat. And Democrats are upset because Joe Biden pardoned his son. We got to fucking fight. They're the gender obsessed weirdos, not us. We're the ones who fight for Social Security. We fight for Medicare. And yeah, we're not going to bully trans people. We're not going to fucking do it. Fine.
Hey, let me say this. As mayor, 2016, I dealt with the bathroom issue. It's not my most important issue. It was dealt with, and I appropriately dealt with marriage equality, as I said.
Well, it's certainly important to the Republicans. For me, it's just important not to bully them. And I think this is the death knell of the Democrats. It upsets me. It upsets me so much because we live here in this red state and you see the damage of it, when I see politicians that are supposed to be leaders in the Democratic Party buy into the narrative that Republicans have defined us by, instead of fighting and saying, you're the weirdos that are obsessed with it. Yeah, we're not going to bully some trans kid. And we buy into their narrative. It's why I think we lose. And I have to live in a state where women, rape victims can't get an abortion because of this bullshit. And so I'm going to fight till the bitter end. And I'm not going to let some MAGA moron define what progressive values are. And I think it's a really dangerous precedent, Mr. Emanuel. I'm sorry, but I have to push back. And I'm not some coastal elite liberal.
Listen, where you choose to live, but I've just got to be honest with you. You keep talking about living in this red state craziness. There is U-Haul if you want to move out, but I would just tell you this. My view is there's a whole set of issues, and these are side tangential issues. They're not core.
I fucking love her. Jennifer was spot on here. I've seen clips of her before, but this is the first time where she really got my attention. Not that she didn't say anything good before, wasn't entertaining. I've always liked whatever I've seen of her, but this right here, this was awesome. Democrats like Rahm Emanuel, they make it so much easier for Republicans because they keep feeding into their bullshit and they're not trying to change the way things are. They're not trying to be the ones to put Republicans on defense. They're playing defense. They're right where Republicans want them. And I love how he had the audacity to tell her that she could move out of her state if she didn't like it, which is extremely insulting. That's your solution, to just move out of your state if you don't like that it's run by crazy Republicans? There are people who can't move out of their states, Rahm, which is why it's important to continue to push for change in those red states. So to just dismiss her concerns and say, well, you can move, that's really fucked up. And it's not like, people in these states are asking for anything extreme. We're talking about basic human rights, the ability to go to the bathroom in public and express yourself however you want, to choose a gender, to get an abortion if you're raped. These are not extreme things. So the fact that people in red states are demanding these basic human rights, I don't think that's too extreme. I don't think that they should be the ones to move. I think that the state should change to give them basic fucking human dignity. But according to Rahm Emanuel, if you don't like it, just pick up and leave. I don't know how this is different than the Republicans who tell us, oh, well, if you don't love it, then leave it, when we criticize the United States. The fact that he brought this up shows how out of touch he is. And at the end, he talks about how social justice issues are tangential issues, meaning that it's a culture war issue that serves as more of a distraction from the more significant issues. And while it's true that Republicans use social justice issues to distract voters from their unpopular economic policies, that doesn't mean that Democrats should retreat and dismiss these issues as frivolous, because the culture war is not a victimless war. We're seeing what happens right now when Democrats retreat and don't fight so-called culture war issues. For years, they ignored Republican lies about Biden having an open border, and now immigrants are arbitrarily being shipped to foreign gulags without due process. See, this happens when the country thinks that things are so bad that mass deportation is okay, and a candidate can run on mass deportation and voters can think, actually, that sounds good. You can't allow Republicans to monopolize discourse ever on any social justice issue because you think that they're frivolous, or you think that there's more important things. You have to push back and defend marginalized people and expose how the right is trying to scapegoat them to hide their real agenda, which is to transfer more wealth to rich people. But this is a serious problem with the Democratic Party, broadly speaking, where they think that they'll be able to win elections by chumming it up with the right to make them look more reasonable, I guess, because we can all see that there's hyperpolarization in the United States. You have the far right, and then there's the far left, apparently, which I guess the Democrats are far left, according to some people, which is absurd to me. But since there's two extremes that are fighting each other, you want to come off as the more reasonable person, and some Democrats try to do that, and some of them have gone so far that they're indistinguishable from the worst Republicans in the country, to where I don't even know if you're trying to appeal to the center anymore as opposed to just the right. For example, John Fetterman, a bloodthirsty genocide supporter, is now calling on our fascist president to start a war with Iran. I'm not making this up. In an interview with the right-wing rag Washington Free Beacon, he encouraged Trump to, quote, waste that shit. You're never going to be able to negotiate with that kind of a regime that has been destabilizing the region for decades already, and now we have an incredible window, I believe, to do that, to strike and destroy Iran's nuclear facilities. Hey, John, the destabilizing force in the Middle East is us. But never mind the fact that we already did negotiate with this regime. Obama negotiated the JCPOA, and Iran was in compliance with it, according to the International Atomic Energy Agency. But then Trump got elected and decided to rip it apart. And now we're in a situation where Iran is once again trying to enrich to the point to get a nuclear weapon, because since they're no longer bound by that agreement, you know, they think that that will be a deterrent from U.S. aggression, which is something we talk about all the time. You know, John Fetterman is talking about wanting to bomb Iran right now, so why wouldn't they want to come up with some sort of a deterrence? It's not that you can't negotiate with them, it's that we choose not to. But the senator from Israel, John Fetterman, is encouraging our madman president to launch a regional war in the Middle East simply because Israel is his real constituent. Benjamin Netanyahu, that's the person who John Fetterman represents, which is why he's aligning with fascists to do the bidding of Israel. But it's not just John Fetterman, because Gavin Newsom decided to start a podcast, as you all know, where he talks with fascist criminals and literal white supremacists, I guess in an effort to appeal to centrists who are going to be happy about white supremacists like Charlie Kirk. I mean, I'm not really sure what he's going for here, but this is what he's doing to run for president in 2028. He's trying to come off as the reasonable Democrat who's willing to have these tough conversations with people who he disagrees with. But he ended up getting massive backlash because in these conversations that he had, it wasn't so much as a conversation as it was right-wingers running roughshod over him. And it doesn't seem like he understands why people are so upset with these podcasts that he's been hosting. According to The Hill, quote, "The reaction when I had Charlie Kirk and Bannon on was exactly to me exhibit A of what I feel is wrong right now with my party, an unwillingness to even engage and platform to listen," the California governor said. Democrats, he said, wanted it to be a debate, take the guy down, as opposed to these two voices had a disproportionate impact on the voice you're hearing every single day in the megaphone in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So maybe we should pay attention and at least express a desire to absorb and learn from what they're doing and how successful they've been, Newsom added. Well, let me help you out here, dipshit. The reason why you have to challenge people like that if you're going to platform them is because they are fucking wrong. But you didn't do that. Instead, you praised Charlie Kirk. You gave him a sloppy BJ. He's an open racist, and you told him how much of a fan your son is of him, which is a failure as a father on your part, by the way, and you agreed with him that trans people should be second-class citizens. You also let Steve Bannon spew lies about the 2020 election and didn't push back, and what you're doing is not helping Democrats, you're helping them grow. Right? This isn't going to make Democrats seem more reasonable. You're going to make them seem more reasonable. It is legitimizing them and priming your liberal listeners to think that their antiquated beliefs are actually valid, since the governor that they trust is platforming them and listening to them and even praising them. There's a reason why right-wing podcasts rarely ever bring on liberals and lefties. And when they do, it's always confrontational because they understand the value in setting the agenda, and apparently you don't. And don't pretend like this is about anything other than you pandering to the right in an effort to get them to vote for you in 2028, because even CNN sees through your bullshit.
By the way, not one person ever in my office has ever used the word Latinx.
So can we finally put that to bed?
Yeah,
we agree.
where did that even
No
go?
more Latinx, everybody.
Well, I just didn't even know where it came from. I'm like, what are people talking about?
But there was a person who used Latinx. It was actually a really important person. It was him. Right?
Yeah, that's right. And look, these aren't minor shifts. These are progressive issues that Gavin Newsom used to champion until fairly recently. And now he's not just walking away from them. He's sort of acting like they were never legitimate with that clip talking about Latinx in the first place. But let's take Latinx. We did find somebody who used it repeatedly in his office. Let's take a listen to this.
I hope we can really paint a picture in terms of our consciousness of how impactful this has been on the Latinx community. The Latinx and Black communities. You've got politicians that are banning not assault rifles, but the word Latinx. They're not even serious.
Yeah, so if the party is serious about changing for the better, they have to start by ridding themselves of self-serving opportunists like that. People like Rahm Emanuel, John Fetterman, and Gavin Newsom, and others that we haven't named today, they think that the Democratic Party's ticket to victory is to become right-wing themselves in order to adapt to what they believe is a broader cultural shift to the right. But Republicans will never vote for diet Republicans when they can have the real thing. So if you're already conservative, you're not going to suddenly consider a Democrat who's saying right-wing things. You're going to think that they're pandering to you and then vote for the Republican anyway. And this isn't just me saying that. Political science studies show that this strategy isn't just ineffective, it's actually counterintuitive, because when center-left parties shift to the right, they alienate their own base. And towards the end of her campaign, when Kamala Harris shifted to courting Republicans almost exclusively, with Liz Cheney stumping for her, there were signs that the left was feeling alienated and growing disillusioned with her campaign. And sure enough, turnout for Democrats was low and she lost. And the left was already frustrated with her since she refused to break with Biden on his support for Israel's genocide. So when you ignore issues that are important to your base and you try to court the other side, you hand them a giant victory. When you boast about how you're tougher on the border, perhaps even than Donald Trump, you communicate to voters that Republicans were actually right about immigration all along. When you ignore trans issues and don't defend trans people from GOP attacks, you let Republicans fill the void with their hateful rhetoric. You won't beat Republicans by becoming Republicans. You'll beat Republicans by offering an alternative to Republicans. And that is why it was so cathartic to see Jennifer Welch rip Rahm Emanuel a new asshole, because this strategy does not fucking work. And it's about time Democrats get that through their thick fucking heads. And the ones who already understand that need to do their part to cleanse the party of these right-wing ideologues, saboteurs more specifically, who keep pushing this strategy. Any Democrat who tells you you need to move to the center or the right to court moderate voters is setting you up to lose.